All right, so today we're going to be diving deep into personal boundaries.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with,
Yeah,
but it's so crucial for our, mental well-being.
for sure.
And, you guys sent in this really comprehensive guide all about setting boundaries for better mental health.
Awesome.
And I'm really excited to kind of dig into it because I can already tell, just from skimming it, that it's packed with really useful information.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And to help us unpack all of this, we have our expert on,
Well, I'm ready.
personal boundaries.
Let's do it.
So,
Yeah.
when we think about the word boundaries right away, we think about like these walls shutting people out.
Right, like keeping people away.
Yeah. But this guide paints a totally different picture.
Yeah, it
It
does.
uses this analogy of a peaceful landscape with like a shimmering, translucent barrier.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
More like a gentle force field instead of like a concrete wall.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're still open to connection, but you're protected.
Yeah. Got it.
It makes you think about how boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about honoring ourselves and our needs.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So there are different types of boundaries, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We talk about physical boundaries, like, somebody standing too close to you.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or touching you without permission.
Oh, absolutely.
But then it gets deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
We have those physical boundaries,
Yeah,
but then there are emotional boundaries.
for sure.
Like, how do we protect our emotional energy?
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody's constantly demanding our attention or our time, we start to feel drained.
Exactly. And then that can even like manifest physically. You can feel kind of a tense,
Right.
or just not want to be around them.
Right. And then it can make you uncomfortable when they're even physically near you
For sure.
because you're like, my energy is already depleted by this person.
Yeah.
And then there's intellectual boundaries,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
which I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
And, respecting different opinions.
Yes,
Even when we strongly disagree.
definitely.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah, it is. And, a lot of people nowadays, I think, have a really hard time with that,
Totally.
where they just, want to shut down other people's viewpoints.
Totally.
But that's a boundary violation.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
So we've got physical, emotional, intellectual, and then, of course, in the digital world,
Right.
we've got to have those boundaries too.
Absolutely.
This guide dives deep into that,
Yeah.
which is super relevant, I think, for all of us.
It is. I mean,
Oh,
we're
we're all of them.
online all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
24/7, bombarded with information and demands and
Notifications. Yes.
all of it.
Constantly.
It'd be so draining.
It can be.
Yeah.
And if you're not setting those boundaries, it can be very overwhelming.
Yes. Our brains never get a chance to like rest and recharge.
That's so true.
And so the guide talks about setting boundaries around work hours,
Yes.
limiting social media,
Yeah.
and scheduling those digital detox periods.
Oh, those are so important.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't even think about
Totally.
like digital detoxes,
Right.
but they're super important for your mental health.
Yeah.
There's actually research coming out now about the psychological effects of all this connectivity.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's increased stress and anxiety,
Makes sense?
and even like disrupted sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, setting those digital boundaries isn't just about having more free time.
Right.
It's about protecting your mental health.
Totally. I mean, if you're thinking about like, why should I care about boundaries?
Yeah, right.
Like, what's the big deal?
Why does it matter to me?
Yeah.
Right?
The guide says that if we have core boundaries or no boundaries at all, it can lead to feeling overwhelmed,
For sure.
drained, resentful.
Yeah, you're constantly putting other people's needs ahead of your own, and you end up feeling totally depleted.
Yeah, and there's this great quote in the guide
Okay.
from Henry Cloud. He says, "The quality of our lives is in direct proportion to the quality of the boundaries we set."
Oh, I love that.
It's so good.
It's so true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how it's not about saying no to others.
Right.
It's about saying yes to ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
To our own needs.
To your happiness.
To our happiness. Yeah,
It's about you.
It is. And that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, when we start putting ourselves first a little bit.
You got it.
Okay, so we know boundaries are like the key to
Yeah.
a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
But how do we actually set them?
Right. Yeah, that's the big question.
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And this guide gives some really practical steps.
Okay, good.
And it starts with identifying our limits.
Yeah.
It sounds simple enough,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of us...
Kind of go through life not even really knowing
Yeah,
what those limits are.
totally. It's like we're on autopilot.
Yeah.
just reacting
Reacting to everything.
instead of like being proactive
Right.
about setting those boundaries.
Yeah. So like, how do we even start?
So it requires a little bit of introspection,
Okay.
like asking yourself, what makes me uncomfortable?
Okay.
What drains my energy?
Yeah.
And what am I just not willing to tolerate?
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
love how the guide talks about those subtle cues.
yes.
Like if you notice yourself getting tense
Mhm.
or irritable
Totally.
in a certain situation,
Yeah.
that's probably a sign that a boundary needs to be set.
Exactly. Like listen to those whispers
Yeah.
before they become screams.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So once you've identified those limits,
Yeah.
then you have to communicate them clearly.
Yes. Communication is key.
Yeah, and the guide talks about using I statements.
I love I statements. They're so powerful.
So instead of saying like,
Right.
you always interrupt me,
Yes.
which is like,
Blaming the other person.
Yes,
Accusatory.
yes.
Right.
You say,
Yeah.
I feel unheard when I'm interrupted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes the defensiveness out of it.
Totally.
And it allows you to have like a more open and honest conversation.
Right. It's just a subtle shift,
Yeah.
but it makes a big difference.
It's huge.
And then the guide also talks about consistency.
Oh, consistency is key.
Yes.
You can't just like set a boundary one time
Right.
and then let it slide the next time.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotta be consistent.
It's like that flimsy fence.
Yes.
That's like blowing in the wind.
Totally.
It's not really protecting anything.
No, it's not a real boundary if it keeps getting crossed.
And that consistency is especially important when dealing with conflict.
Yes, because conflict will happen
Oh, yeah.
when you start setting boundaries.
Right.
People might not like it.
Yeah.
They might push back.
Yeah. And this guide really acknowledges that. That like setting boundaries can lead to pushback.
Yeah,
Even from people who we love.
for sure. You know.
We might encounter guilt trips,
Mm-hmm.
anger manipulation,
Yeah.
but it's about staying calm,
Yes.
reiterating the boundary, and remembering that we're not responsible for other people's reactions.
That's a big one.
Right. It's not our job to manage their emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just responsible for communicating your needs
Right.
clearly and respectfully.
Yeah. And so I think that's where
Yeah,
it's helpful to have some tools in our arsenal
for sure.
to help us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, one thing
Yeah.
that you talk about a lot
Mm-hmm.
is starting small.
Yes.
So instead of like,
Right.
you know, tackling this huge boundary.
Yeah, don't go for the biggest one first.
Right.
Start with something small.
Yeah, like maybe instead of confronting your boss about your crazy workload, you just start by not checking emails after work hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a small step.
Small step.
But it's still building that muscle of assertiveness.
Right, of self-respect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you experience those small wins,
Yeah.
your confidence grows,
Yes, totally.
and then you're able to tackle those bigger things.
Yeah, it's like you're getting those reps in.
Yes, you got to train like
Yeah.
a muscle.
Right.
You know?
Totally.
So another tool I love is visualization.
Oh, visualization.
Yeah. So close your eyes and
Yeah.
imagine yourself confidently setting a boundary
Mm-hmm.
in a challenging situation.
Okay.
Like really picture yourself standing tall, speaking clearly,
Yeah.
feeling that sense of empowerment.
Right.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, and that mental rehearsal can really help prepare us.
Absolutely. For those real life interactions.
Okay, so speaking of challenges,
Yeah.
let's talk about boundaries in the digital age.
Oh, yes.
I feel like this is where things get
This is where it gets tricky.
tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like technology is blurring those lines
blurring all the lines.
between work and personal life.
Right. And it's no wonder we're all so burned out
Totally.
and
It's
overwhelmed.
the feeling of always being on.
Yes. Constantly.
Yeah.
You never get a break.
Yeah, so the guide emphasizes those boundaries around work hours.
Yes. So important.
You know, like
Mhm.
turning off notifications after a certain time,
Yep.
designating a specific work zone.
Yes. If you work from home,
Yes.
you need a work zone.
And having those conversations
Yeah.
with colleagues
Absolutely.
about communication, expectations.
All about communication.
Yeah.
Setting those expectations up front.
Right. And then social media.
Oh, social media.
It's a whole other beast.
It is a beast.
So the guy talks about,
Yeah.
you know, limiting that time spent scrolling.
Yes. Set those
Being
back.
mindful of the content we're consuming.
Absolutely.
And even curating our feed to make it a more positive
Positive space.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was super interesting
Yeah.
what the guide said about the psychological effects
Yes.
of social media.
So they highlighted some research
Okay.
showing how all that comparison
Yeah.
and FOMO
Yeah.
And like the pressure to present this perfect online persona
Right.
can really like negatively impact our self-esteem
Totally.
and mental well-being.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with these idealized versions of reality.
Yes.
That it's like,
It's hard to feel good enough
yeah.
when you're looking at that all the time.
So setting boundaries around social media,
Yes.
it's not just about like having more free time.
It's about protecting your mental health.
It's about protecting our mental health
Yes.
and having a more authentic sense of self.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And then the guide also talks about digital detoxes.
Yes, digital detoxes.
So important.
So important.
Whether it's just like a few hours in the evening or like a tech-free weekend.
Yep.
Or even like a full-on digital sabbatical.
You can go all out.
Right.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, and it's so restorative.
Is.
To just give our brains a chance.
Yes.
To reset.
To unplug.
To recharge.
Yeah, and reconnect with the real world and the people around you.
And it's not just about saying no to technology.
Right.
It's about saying yes to the things that nourish us.
Exactly.
And the guide talks about self-care.
Yes.
Self-care is like a vital part of maintaining strong boundaries.
Absolutely.
And gives all these strategies.
Yeah.
Like mindfulness, stress management, building a strong support system.
Yes. Those are also important.
I love the emphasis on mindfulness.
Yes. Mindfulness is so key.
Because in a world where...
Especially in today's world.
Yes.
Where everyone's like, go, go, go.
Right.
It's so important to take those moments.
To pause.
Yes.
Breathe.
Connect with the present moment.
Yeah.
Be in the now.
And it doesn't have to be meditation.
No.
It could be anything.
It can be a walk in nature.
Yeah.
Savoring a cup of tea or just like truly listening to a loved one.
Yeah.
Like really being present.
Just that awareness of our thoughts and emotions.
Yes. And your body.
Yeah.
Like what sensations are you feeling?
Yeah. And that can be so helpful.
Absolutely.
In recognizing when our boundaries are being crossed.
Exactly.
And taking steps to protect ourselves.
That's the key.
And then the guide also highlights stress management.
Oh, yes.
Because when we're stressed, we're more likely to feel overwhelmed.
Totally.
Reactive.
Yeah. And less capable of setting those boundaries.
Right.
It's like your resilience tank is running low.
Yeah.
You know.
And so the guide recommends things like exercise, yoga, spending time in nature.
Nature is so healing.
Yes.
And doing things that bring you joy.
Yeah, all of those things help to regulate our nervous system.
Yes.
And build our capacity to cope.
With stress.
With stress, yeah.
Which is so important.
Which is so important.
For setting boundaries.
And then that support system.
Oh, your support system.
Is so important. Having those people in our lives who respect our boundaries, encourage us, offer support.
Yeah. It makes all the difference.
It really does.
In the world.
Yeah.
To have people who get it.
It's about creating that circle of trust.
Yes. A safe space.
A safe space where you can be vulnerable.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, express your needs.
Okay, so we've talked about identifying limits, communicating clearly, being consistent, navigating conflict. But setting boundaries isn't always easy.
It's not.
There are challenges.
For sure.
Moments when we stumble.
Absolutely.
We doubt ourselves.
It's all part of the process.
And the guide really acknowledges this.
It does.
It dives into some of the common hurdles that people face.
Yeah, like what are some of the things that trip people up?
Right.
So one of the biggest hurdles is a lack of assertiveness.
Assertiveness.
You know, so many people struggle with speaking up for themselves.
Right.
With saying no. Without feeling guilty.
Yes.
We've been conditioned to people pleaser, to avoid conflict, to put other people's needs
before our own,
ahead of our own.
Yeah, and I think that's where that inner critic can come in.
Oh, for sure.
And we tell ourselves like, I'm being selfish, or I'm going to hurt their feelings, or they won't like me if I say no.
Right, all those fears.
But honoring our needs isn't selfish.
It's not.
It's essential.
Essential.
And so the guide gives us some tips for building that assertiveness.
Okay.
Starting with recognizing those negative self-talk patterns.
Yes, become aware of that inner critic.
Yeah.
What is it saying?
Yeah, and then challenge it.
Challenge it.
So instead of saying, I'm being selfish, we can say,
I deserve to be treated with respect.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Or instead of saying, oh, I'm going to hurt their feelings, try saying, I'm communicating my needs honestly and directly.
And that's a huge shift.
It is.
It's a reframe.
It's a reframe.
That allows us to prioritize our well-being.
Absolutely.
And the guide also recommends practicing assertiveness.
Yes.
In low-stakes situations.
Yes. Start small.
So maybe like saying no to that extra commitment you don't have time for.
That you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
So,
or declining that social invitation that you're not really feeling.
Exactly.
Each time we do that, we're building that muscle.
You got it.
Of self-respect.
Yes. And it gets easier over time.
Yeah, it's like training for a marathon.
Exactly. You don't start by running 26 miles.
Right.
You start with 1 mile and you gradually build up to that big goal.
Another challenge is the fear of conflict.
Oh, the dreaded conflict.
Right. It's intimidating.
It is.
To have those boundary conversations.
Yeah, it can be scary.
Because we're worried about hurting someone's feelings or damaging relationships or facing backlash.
Right.
But the guide reminds us that conflict, when handled constructively, can actually be an opportunity for growth.
It can.
Yeah.
It's not always a bad thing.
It's about shifting our perspective from like conflict avoidance to like conflict as an opportunity.
Yes, to deepen understanding, to clarify your needs, to strengthen those relationships.
Yeah, and so the guide gives us some strategies for navigating
how do we handle
those difficult conversations? Like using I statements.
Yes, I statements are your friend.
Right. Staying calm.
Calm, cool, and collected.
Being respectful.
Yes. Always respectful.
And remember, it's okay to take a break.
Absolutely.
If things are getting heated.
Yeah, sometimes you need to walk away.
Yeah.
And come back to it later.
Right. Sometimes we need a minute.
Yes, we do.
And then the guide also talks about emotional resilience.
Oh,
which is so important.
Emotional resilience is key.
When we're setting boundaries.
Absolutely.
Because we might face pushback.
Yes.
Guilt trips.
Guilt trips are real.
Anger.
People get angry
Yeah.
when you start setting boundaries.
Right, because they're not used to it.
They're not used to it.
So it's really important to have those coping strategies in place.
Yes.
So we don't get derailed.
Right.
And that might involve leaning on our support system.
Yes, call a friend.
Practicing self-care.
Take a bath.
Journaling.
Journal it out.
Just anything that helps you process.
Process those emotions.
Those emotions, yeah.
Yeah.
And regulate your nervous system.
Regulate. So you don't get dysregulated.
It's about building that inner strength.
Yes.
To stay true to our needs.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Yes.
And remember, we're not alone.
You're not alone.
In this.
Everybody struggles with this. It's a normal part of the process.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, not a destination.
And the more we practice, the more confident we become.
Absolutely.
And the rewards are so worth it.
They are so worth it.
Yeah, so we're talking about greater self-respect, healthier relationships, a more fulfilling life.
It's about reclaiming your power.
Yes.
Honoring your worth.
Yes.
And creating a life that truly aligns with your values and your needs.
So we've covered a lot here.
We have.
From identifying our limits to navigating conflict.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that setting boundaries isn't just about saying no.
Right.
It's also about saying yes.
Yes, to yourself.
To your well-being.
Yeah.
To our well-being, yeah.
It's about you.
And so self-care is such a vital part.
Absolutely, it is.
It's like replenishing those energy reserves.
Yes.
So that we have the strength.
Yes.
And the resilience.
Yes.
To protect our space.
Exactly.
And we talked about mindfulness and stress management.
Yep.
But I want to go back to that support system.
Oh, yeah.
Because
your people.
Having those people.
They're so important.
Who respect our boundaries.
Yeah.
Encourage our growth. It can make all the difference.
Huge difference.
It's like creating that circle.
That circle of trust.
Of trust.
Where you can just be yourself.
Yes. Vulnerabilities and all.
All the vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Without that fear of judgment.
Yeah. Those are the people who will celebrate your wins.
Yeah.
Comfort you during setbacks and remind you of your worth.
Yes.
You know, when that inner critic is getting loud.
And it's not just about receiving support.
Right.
It's also about giving it.
It is. It goes both ways. It's reciprocal.
It's a beautiful dance.
Yes.
Of mutual respect and care.
It makes me think about that.
Yeah.
Serene landscape.
I love that analogy.
Analogy from the guide where everybody has these clear boundaries.
Shimmering boundaries.
Yeah, spaces of respect.
Spaces of respect.
And self-awareness.
Yes. What a world that would be.
Right.
If everybody had those clear boundaries.
Yeah.
And respected each other's boundaries.
Yeah, where people felt safe to be themselves.
Yes.
Express their needs.
To create those nourishing relationships.
Yeah.
That are supportive.
And it all starts with us.
It does.
Making that decision.
That commitment.
To set those healthy boundaries.
To put yourself first.
Okay. Well, we're ready to wrap things up.
Okay.
What are some of the key takeaways?
So I think the biggest one is that boundaries are not selfish.
Okay.
They are essential
Yeah.
for a healthy and fulfilling life.
And setting those boundaries is a journey. It is a journey.
Not a destination.
It takes time.
Yeah.
And practice.
Practice.
And a willingness to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, and we don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone.
Right. Lean on your support system.
Yes.
Practice that self-care.
Take care of yourself.
Okay, before we sign off,
yeah,
I want to leave our listener with one final thought.
Okay, I love a good final thought.
It's about the ripple effect.
Oh, the ripple effect.
Of boundaries.
I love that.
When we set healthy boundaries for ourselves, it's not just about protecting our own space and energy.
Right. It's about the impact it has on other people, too.
It's like setting a positive example.
Yeah. It shows other people that it's okay to prioritize themselves.
And it can even inspire them.
Yeah, for sure.
To set their own boundaries.
Totally. Like giving them permission.
And think about the impact that has.
It's huge.
On our relationships, our families.
Yeah. Our workplaces, even our communities.
It's like if everyone had those clear boundaries, there would be so much more respect and understanding.
What a world that would be.
It all starts with us.
It does.
Taking that first step.
Setting those boundaries.
Okay, so I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, shoot.
I want you to close your eyes.
Okay.
And imagine yourself in a situation where you need to set a boundary.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And now imagine yourself navigating that situation with confidence and grace.
I like it.
Communicating your needs clearly and respectfully.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see it.
How does that feel?
It feels good.
What do you notice in your body?
I feel strong.
Hold on to that feeling.
Okay, I will.
That's the power of boundaries.
It is powerful.
It's about taking back your power, honoring your worth, and creating a life that you truly love.
So well said.
Setting boundaries is a skill.
Yeah.
That takes practice.
It does.
Don't be discouraged if you stumble or you have moments of doubt.
It's all part of the process.
Just keep practicing, keep learning, and keep celebrating your progress.
We're all in this together.
If you have any insights or questions about personal boundaries, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please share.
Share your thoughts on social media, and let's keep this conversation going.
Until next time.